Somewhere in East Africa right now, a 1983 Mercedes-Benz is doing what it has done every single day for the past 4 decades. Starting up, running, no breaking down, no warning lights, no error codes, no dealer appointment needed. Now look at the Mercedes sitting in your neighbor's driveway. The new one. The one with 47 different driving modes, a touchscreen that controls the air conditioning, and a warranty that expires before the loan does. Here is the paradox that nobody at Mercedes wants you to think about too hard. They once built a product so perfect, so indestructible, so stubbornly reliable, that it started hurting their own business. And so they made a decision. A deliberate, calculated, boardroom-approved decision. They killed it. Not because the technology failed, not because customers complained, but because a product that never breaks is a product that never gets replaced. Today we are going to follow the full story, from the engineering masterpiece that started it all to the financial logic that ended it, and what that tells us about every car being sold to you right now. To understand what Mercedes killed, you first have to understand what they built. The year is 1974. The world is in the middle of an oil crisis. Fuel prices have doubled overnight. The American muscle car era is dying in real time. And in Stuttgart, Germany, a group of engineers, not accountants, not marketing executives, engineers, are asking a question that nobody else is bothering to ask. What is the most reliable, most efficient engine we are capable of building? The answer was the OM0617, a 3.0-litre 5-cylinder diesel engine, and the first of its kind ever fitted to a production passenger car. Now let us talk about why this engine was different, not in vague terms, in specifics. First, the block, cast iron. Not aluminium, not a composite. Cast iron, the same material used in industrial machinery built to last generations. Heavy, yes, but virtually immune to the warping, cracking and thermal stress that destroys lighter modern engines over time. Second, the timing chain. Not a rubber belt that needs replacing every 60,000 miles and destroys your engine if you forget. A steel timing chain, designed to last the lifetime of the engine, not the warranty period, the lifetime. Third, the injection system, fully mechanical. A Bosch inline injection pump with 0 electronic components. No sensors to fail, no software to glitch, no modules to replace at $800 a piece. You could diagnose every problem with your ears and fix most of them with a basic set of tools. Fourth, the 5-cylinder configuration itself. 4 cylinders were efficient but rough. 6 cylinders were smooth but heavy and thirsty. 5 cylinders hit a balance point that engineers describe as almost accidental in its perfection. Smooth enough for a luxury sedan, light enough to stay efficient, torquey enough to pull a loaded taxi up a mountain. And then there is the real-world proof. Gregorios Sachinidis, a taxi driver from Thessaloniki, Greece. He bought a Mercedes diesel in the 1970s and drove it, and kept driving it. By the time his story reached the press, his Mercedes had covered 4.6 million kilometers. That is not a typo. 4.6 million kilometers. Roughly the distance from Earth to Venus and back, on one engine, with regular maintenance and no major mechanical rebuild. Mercedes flew him to Stuttgart. They gave him a brand new car, and they quietly kept his old engine for their museum, because even they knew they were never going to build anything like it again. Here is where the story stops being about engineering and starts being about money, because there is a fundamental contradiction at the heart of building something that lasts forever. If your product never breaks, your customer never comes back. Think about the math. A W123 300D, bought in 1979, could realistically still be the owner's daily driver in 1999. 20 years. 2 full decades without a replacement sale. No service revenue beyond routine oil changes. No parts replacements beyond wear items like brake pads and filters. For a loyal customer, this was paradise. For a publicly traded company with quarterly earnings targets, this was a slow-moving financial disaster. And then came the 1980s. And with the 1980s came Japan. Toyota launched Lexus in 1989 with the LS400. A car that matched Mercedes on quality, beat them on reliability scores, and undercut them significantly on price. Honda's Acura and Nissan's Infiniti followed the same playbook. Suddenly, Mercedes was no longer the default answer to the question of which luxury car to buy. They had competition, real competition, from manufacturers who had studied their weaknesses and engineered directly at them. At the same time, the cost of producing something to OM617 standards was becoming increasingly difficult to justify. Cast iron is heavy. Mechanical injection requires skilled calibration. Building an engine designed to last 1,000,000 kilometers costs significantly more per unit than building one designed to last 150,000. And here is the question that Mercedes boardrooms started asking very quietly. Why are we making this harder on ourselves than we need to? The conflict was real, and it was irreconcilable. On one side, a philosophy of engineering excellence built over decades, embodied in an engine that had become the global benchmark for diesel reliability. On the other side, the cold logic of capitalism, quarterly returns, and a competitive market that was punishing premium pricing without premium margins. Quality and profitability had been allies for a long time at Mercedes. In the late 1980s, they started becoming enemies. If there is a single moment historians point to as the turning point, the moment the old Mercedes philosophy began its formal end, it is 1998. The Daimler-Chrysler merger. On paper, it was described as a merger of equals. In practice, it was a collision between two completely different corporate cultures. Daimler brought German precision engineering and a century of automotive heritage. Chrysler brought American cost-cutting instincts and a very different set of priorities. The cultural fallout was significant. Cost reduction became the dominant mandate across the combined company. Suppliers were squeezed, material specifications were reviewed, anything that added cost without adding to the balance sheet was questioned, and a cast-iron engine block designed to last 1,000,000 kilometers added a great deal of cost. What replaced the mechanical simplicity of the OM617 era was not just new technology. It was a specific kind of new technology. Technology that was sophisticated, impressive, and, by design or by consequence, temporary. Electronic air suspension systems that provide a remarkable ride for 8 years and then require complete replacement. Multi-layer plastic intake manifolds that crack under thermal cycling. Complex variable geometry turbochargers with actuators that fail outside of warranty. Electrical systems with so many modules, sensors, and control units that diagnosing a single fault can require thousands of dollars in specialist equipment. This is what engineers and mechanics call planned obsolescence, and it is worth taking a moment to understand exactly what that means. Planned obsolescence is not necessarily a conspiracy. It is a design philosophy. It is the practice of engineering a product with a defined lifespan, long enough to seem durable, short enough to require replacement on a commercially convenient timeline. It does not require evil intentions. It just requires a prioritization of business continuity over engineering permanence. You already live with this every day. Your smartphone is slower than it was 3 years ago, not because the hardware degraded, but because software updates were designed for the next generation of hardware. Your laptop battery holds 60% of its original charge. Your washing machine has a circuit board that costs more to replace than the machine itself. Mercedes applied the same logic to the automobile, and in doing so, they traded something that cannot be bought back easily. They traded their soul. The old Mercedes were overbuilt. They exceeded the requirements of the task. They lasted longer than any reasonable cost-benefit analysis could justify. And that excess, that deliberate over-engineering, was the brand. It was what people paid for when they bought the three-pointed star. When that excess was engineered out in the name of profitability, the brand did not disappear overnight. Brands never do. But the substance behind the brand had quietly left the building. So where does that leave us today? The data is not kind to modern Mercedes-Benz. In reliability surveys conducted across the last decade by J.D. Power, Consumer Reports, and independent automotive data companies, Mercedes consistently ranks among the lower half of luxury manufacturers for long-term reliability. Not at the very bottom, but nowhere near the top, and nowhere near where the name Mercedes-Benz once stood. The specific failure points are well documented. The airmatic suspension on the W220 S-Class. The balance shaft failures in the M272 and M273 gasoline engines. The notorious electrical gremlins across the W211 E-Class generation. The BlueTech emissions system issues across multiple diesel models. The list of known systematic failures in modern Mercedes vehicles is long enough to fill a separate video, and many people on this platform have made exactly those videos. Meanwhile, something interesting is happening in the used car market. The W123, which went out of production in 1985, is currently appreciating in value, not depreciating, appreciating. Clean examples in running condition sell for prices that would have seemed absurd 15 years ago. The W124, the generation that followed and still maintained much of the old engineering philosophy before the full decline, commands similar respect. Diesel versions with the OM602 engine, the OM617's direct successor, routinely appear in listings with 500,000 plus kilometers, offered by owners who are not selling because the car is worn out. They are selling because they need a larger vehicle, or they are moving, or they are upgrading, not because the car failed them. There is a global community of people who specifically seek out these old Mercedes diesels. Not for nostalgia, for function. They are being used as daily drivers in countries with poor fuel quality, limited service infrastructure, and roads that would destroy a modern vehicle within a few years. In Ethiopia, the W123 is so dominant in the taxi fleet that it has a local nickname. In parts of Central Asia, finding a mechanic who can service a W123 is easier than finding one who can service a modern car with full electronic management systems. And here is the question that should make every modern car buyer pause for a moment. Will the car you are buying today still be running in 40 years? Will anyone still want it? Will parts still exist for it? Will a mechanic in a small workshop in a developing country be able to keep it alive with basic tools? For the OM617, the answer to all of those questions is yes. For most of what is being sold today, the honest answer is almost certainly no. There is a ghost that haunts the Mercedes-Benz brand. It does not haunt their boardrooms or their marketing campaigns. It haunts their reputation. It haunts the comment sections of their recall announcements. It haunts the conversations in every independent German car workshop where a mechanic sighs and says the words that have become a cliché. They do not build them like they used to. That ghost is the OM617. And every car the three-pointed star sells today is measured, consciously or not, against what that engine represented. Not just reliability, not just durability, a philosophy. A belief that the job of an engineer is to solve a problem permanently, not temporarily. That the mark of a great product is not that it impresses you in a showroom, but that it is still working when your children inherit it. Mercedes did not abandon that philosophy because they ran out of engineering talent. They abandoned it because the market structure they operate in does not reward permanence. It rewards novelty. It rewards the next feature, the next update, the next reason to upgrade. And we, as consumers, have largely accepted this arrangement. We marvel at cars that park themselves and change lanes automatically and stream music and adjust the ambient lighting to match our mood. We accept the $800 sensor failures and the $1,500 software updates and the lease cycles that ensure we never actually own anything. But every time someone finds a 40-year-old Mercedes diesel still running on its original engine, still carrying passengers, still doing what it was built to do, there is a quiet, uncomfortable reminder that it did not have to be this way. The OM617 was not killed because it failed. It was killed because it succeeded too completely. And in that distinction lies the entire story of what modern automotive manufacturing chose to become. Build it to last or build it to sell. Mercedes once knew the difference. Now I want to hear from you. What is the highest mileage you have ever seen on a single car? Any car, any brand. Drop the number in the comments, because I have a feeling this community has some stories that will genuinely surprise people. And if you want to know what happened to the W124, the last Mercedes that still carried the spirit of the OM617 before the full decline, that video is coming next, because that story is just as fascinating and just as uncomfortable for the people in Stuttgart. Subscribe if you want to catch it, and I will see you there.